Hello, movie lovers. This is Does It Hold Up? Special episode here because lately everybody's been talking about the Oscars. They're happening this Sunday. Everybody wants to know who's going to win, and this is one of the most unpredictable years, probably in the last maybe 20 years, where no one knows who's going to win Best Picture. There's a few awards, like maybe Supporting Actor and Supporting Actress, that are kind of locked in, but overall, almost every single award on the night is pretty much up for grabs. So everybody's grasping at whatever they can to figure out who's going to win. Who should they pick to win those big awards? So I'm here today to talk about 6 of them: Best Picture, Best Directing, and all 4 of the acting awards. Basically, what I wanted to do here is look at the precursors, and just 3 of them. A lot of people like to say the Golden Globes is also a precursor to this, but let's be fair here. The Golden Globes is kind of a joke at this point. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Plus, the fact that they give out multiple awards per category, I mean, they have a leading actress in a comedy musical and a leading actress in a drama. That would really skew a lot of the numbers. So people like to point at that one and say, well, she won. Yes, but so did she. So how do we really calculate that? So I got rid of that one and I focused on 3. And they are union awards, so SAG, DGA, or the PGA, the Producers Guild, Directors Guild, or Screen Actors Guild. Focused on the BAFTAs. Once again, a lot of people don't think the BAFTAs are a precursor to the Academy Awards because they're a very different voting body. But at the end of the day, maybe they mean more to the Oscars than a lot of people think. And the last award show that I took a look at was the Critics' Choice. Does it really matter what critics think? No, not in the grand scheme of things. We're all just out here saying what we think about this or that, and critics aren't a voting part of the Academy, but they do watch a lot of movies and they do have industry knowledge, so it's possible that they know more than your average person. So I wanted to take a look at those 3 bodies and decide if they can tell me who's going to win these 6 awards. First award we're going to start looking at here as we deep dive into this is Supporting Actress. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the nominees for Actress in a Supporting Role are Monica Barbaro for Complete Unknown, Ariana Grande for Wicked, Felicity Jones for The Brutalist, Isabella Rossellini for Conclave, Zoe Saldana for Emilia Perez. And let's take a look at how it breaks down based on who won these awards. So Supporting Actress, if they ever win just the SAG award, not a BAFTAs, not a Critics, SAG all by itself, they have gone on to win the Oscar only twice in the last 24 years. 8.33% chance of winning. If they won just the BAFTAs, 2 times as well. If they won just the Critics' Choice, 1 win for the Oscars. But then you get into if they've won more than 2 of those precursors. SAG BAFTAs, 2. SAG Critics, 3, a 12.5% chance. BAFTA Critics only once, 4.17%. And only 1 time in history, which we'll talk about in just a second, did these 3 voting bodies, SAG, BAFTAs, and Critics' Choice, not select the eventual Oscar winner. On the flip side of that, 12 times, SAG, BAFTAs, and Critics have picked the same person who then went on to also win the Oscar. 1 time in history, they didn't pick any of them, and that was all the way back in the year 2001. And that was SAG picked Judi Dench for Chocolat, BAFTAs picked Julie Walters for Billy Elliot, and the Critics' Choice went with Frances McDormand for Almost Famous. But notably, the Oscars said absolutely not to all 3 of those and picked Marcia Gay Harden for Pollock. The only time in the last 24 years that has happened, it's just a little strange that this was the year, but what are you going to do? So looking at these numbers in particular, we might be able to figure out who's destined to win the Academy Award for this category, and it's no surprise. Zoe Saldana has won all 3 of those awards so far. The BAFTAs, the SAG, and the Critics' Choice for her role in that movie, Amelia Perez. Forgot for a second there. For Amelia Perez. And I don't see it happening any different. I don't see a real frontrunner here coming up, or a dark horse coming up to beat her. It's most likely going to be Zoe Saldana. She currently, if you look at all of those percentages and how it all broke down, she has a 95.83% chance of going home with the Oscar this Sunday. So if you're doing a pool or you're doing votes, she should be the one you pick for this category. Let's go ahead and move on to the next category we're going to talk about, and that's supporting actor. Let's break it down. Your nominees are Yura Borisov for Anora, Kieran Culkin, A Real Pain, Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong, The Apprentice. If you only win the SAG Award, you'd go on to win the Oscar just one time. But here's why I think the BAFTAs are a little more critical than people think. 5 times, the person who won the Academy Award also picked up the BAFTA and only the BAFTA. Critics' Choice, 1 time. SAG BAFTAs never were a duo that picked the winners, just those 2. SAG critics have done it 5 times. BAFTAs and critics, never. None, once again, 1 time, none of these bodies voted for the eventual or picked the eventual Oscar winner. But 11 times, all 3 of them have picked the winner. When is that anomaly? Well, that was all the way back in 2005. When SAG picked Paul Giamatti for Cinderella Man, they agreed with the critics who also picked Paul Giamatti for Cinderella Man, but the BAFTAs decided it was going to be Jake Gyllenhaal for Brokeback Mountain. And the Oscars said, screw all 3 of you, we're going with George Clooney for Syriana. That doesn't really make a lot of sense because he wasn't really even in the voting at the time. It was a big shock when he ended up winning. So again, what does that mean for this year's Oscars? Well, Kieran Culkin has won all 3 of those awards, the SAG, the BAFTAs, and the Critics' Choice. So he's in the same boat as Zoe Saldana. He's got a 95.83% chance of winning. So again, if you're doing your votes, if you're trying to figure out who's going to win, write down Kieran Culkin. He's kind of a lock at this point. Let's go ahead and move into the next category, which is lead actor. Your nominees are Adrian Brody, The Brutalist, Timothy Chalamet, A Complete Unknown, Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes, Conclave, and Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. Let's take a look how it's broken down over the past. If you've ever just won the SAG Award, you never go on to win the Oscar, not in the last 24 Academy Awards. That's kind of insane, and we'll talk about that more in just a second. The BAFTAs, if you win just that, you've won 1 Oscar. Just the critics, you've won 2 Oscars, so it seems the critics by themselves can actually pick winners more frequently than the other 2 award ceremonies. SAG BAFTAs, though, when they combine, it's 4 times. SAG Critics is also 4 times as a combination. The BAFTA Critics is 1 time. None, there was actually 2 anomalies in this 24 years where none of these bodies picked the eventual Oscar winner, and when all 3 of them vote exactly the same way, 10 times that person has gone on to win the Academy Award. Let's take a look at those 2 anomalies. They happened in 2001 and 2002. In 2001, Russell Crowe, A Beautiful Mind, was across the board the pick for the SAG, the BAFTAs, and the critics, but the Oscar went to Denzel Washington for Training Day. I mean, you can't really fault this one at all. Denzel's fantastic in Training Day, and Russell Crowe was really good in A Beautiful Mind. You could give it to either one. Then in 2002, the very following year, Daniel Day-Lewis swept for Gangs of New York, but the Oscar eventually went to Adrian Brody for The Pianist. That's kind of a weird one there, because Daniel Day-Lewis was the frontrunner the entire time. Adrian Brody was in conversation, but he wasn't really looked at as like he could upset. So it was really surprising when he ended up winning the award on the night. I think everybody in that room and everybody watching at home was incredibly shocked. But what does that mean for this Sunday when the 2025 Academy Awards airs? Well, Adrian Brody won both the BAFTAs and the Critics' Choice this year. But Timothy Chalamet, just this past Sunday, picked up the SAG Award for his performance in A Complete Unknown. But if we look back at that graphic, you can see that at no time in the last 24 years has the SAG Award winner alone gone on to win the Oscar. So this would be the first time in 25 Academy Awards if that were to happen. Is there a chance? Well, absolutely. But because Adrien Brody picked up both the BAFTAs and the critics, he's more likely going to be your winner. And if you want to look at percentages for that, it would be Timothée Chalamet has about a 75% chance of winning, where Adrien Brody has a 91.67% chance of winning. So once again, when you're making your big board, Adrien Brody should be on top, but do not count out Timothée Chalamet. Next award we're going to take a look at is Lead Actress. Lead Actress is always a hotly debated award, a hotly debated category, because it's one of the ones that seems to always be up in the air the most. Very rarely is there a lock. Is somebody a front runner from like day one until the actual ceremony? There's always conversation happening. Same things happening this year with Demi Moore and Mikey Madison for The Substance and Anora respectively. Which one of these ladies is going to walk away with the Oscar on the night? Well, let's look into the past to see if we can figure it out. The other nominees in this category are Cynthia Erivo for Wicked, Carla Sofia Gascon for Emilia Perez, Mikey Madison for Anora, Demi Moore The Substance, and then Fernanda Torres for I'm Still Here. Going into the past, we can see that if you win the SAG Award alone 3 times, you've gone on to win the Oscar. The BAFTAs, 5. Again, a lot of people say the BAFTAs are not a predictor, but look at that. More often, the BAFTAs alone pick the winner than if SAG picks somebody alone. Critics have never had this happen. They have never picked the winner by themselves. SAG BAFTAs 1 time, SAG Critics as a duo 5 times, and the BAFTAs Critics duo once. There were no anomalies. In the last 24 Academy Awards, the winner on the night has won one of these 3 awards. And when all 3 of them have picked the same exact person, 9 times that person has gone on to win the Academy Award. So there aren't any anomalies to look at for this category, which is kind of surprising. The fact that no matter what, the winner will come from somebody who won the SAG, the BAFTA, or the Critics' Choice Award, or a combination of those. So who is the frontrunner? Who has the most likely chance of winning on Sunday night? Well, Demi Moore picked up the SAG Award and the Critics' Choice Award. Mikey Madison picked up the BAFTA, so that threw a little bit of a wrench into proceedings. Still think Demi Moore is most likely to win, in my personal opinion. Numbers say Demi Moore has a 79.17% chance of winning, where Mikey Madison has a 66.67% chance. So only about 13% difference between these two. It's kind of a toss-up. So really it's going to come down to, who knows? There's no real way to predict. Demi Moore has a slight lead in this category, but at the end of the night, Mikey Madison may be holding that statue. So if you're going to your big board, if you're making all your picks, it's kind of really up to you who you leaning more towards, because go with your favorite and hope that they win. Let's move on to the next category, which is Best Directing, one of the 2 biggest awards on the night. And what does history have to say about it? But first, let's take a look at the nominees. Sean Baker for Anora, Brady Corbet for The Brutalist, James Mangold, A Complete Unknown, Jacques Audiard for Emilia Perez, and Coralie Farge for The Substance. I may not be pronouncing her name right, and I apologize, but that's what I think it is. Let's take a look to see if we can figure out which one of those 5 is going to walk away with the award. Now, we're moving to a new body. It's the DGA, the Directors Guild of America. 3 times, if they won just the DGA, they went on to win the Oscar. BAFTAs, 1 time. Critics, twice. If the DGA and BAFTAs combined, 1 time. If the DGA and Critics combined, 4 times. BAFTA's critics have never combined to pick the Academy Award winner. None, when none of them have picked the right person, 1 time. But when all 3 of those voting bodies picked the same person, that person also went on to win the Academy Award 12 times. 50% of the time, that's how it works. Let's take a look at that anomaly. That was back in 2012. The DGA, the BAFTAs, and the critics all agreed that it should have went to Ben Affleck for Argo, but the Oscars came in and said, we like Ben, but not that much. We're going to give it to Ang Lee for The Life of Pi. Is that the correct choice for 2012? Well, maybe, maybe not. It's really kind of up to you. If you want to know my thoughts, you can go. We have an entire series here on the channel where I pretended to go back in time and redo Academy Awards from the past and give them out again to see who I would give them to. So go check that year out. You might find it interesting. But what does that information say about what's going to happen this year? Well, a lot, actually. Because Sean Baker picked up the DGA award, but Brady Corbet picked up the BAFTA. Okay, well, who picked up the Critics' Choice? Because that would probably lead us in a direction of who's going to win on Oscars night. Well, not really, because John M. Chu, who directed Wicked, was given the Critics' Choice Award for Best Director. So 3 different directors have won one of each of these 3 awards. Does that really tell us who's going to win? Well, a little more than you would think. So Sean Baker for Anora winning that DGA award, if you add up all the times the DGA has predicted it, he has an 83.33% chance of winning on the night. Brady Corbet picking up the BAFTA means he has a 58.33% chance. This is where I think the BAFTAs aren't a real indicator of who's going to pick up the Academy Award, because they tend to go towards British filmmakers or people from Europe, somewhere in that area. So maybe that's a little misconstrued. A lot of people are picking Brady Corbet to be the eventual winner in this category for The Brutalist. A lot of people are also picking Sean Baker for Anora. But if you're going to pick somebody who's going to win on Oscar night, it's most likely going to be Sean Baker for Anora. That's just based on numbers. And the last award we're going to take a look at is Best Picture, the biggest award of the night. And your nominees are Anora, The Brutalist, A Complete Unknown, Conclave, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, I'm Still Here, Nickel Boys, The Substance, and Wicked. Let's take a look at the history. The PGA, the Producers Guild of America, has picked the eventual Oscar winner solo 3 times in the last 24 Academy Awards. The BAFTAs have never done it. Whatever movie they picked, if they were the only one to pick it, that movie has never gone on to win an Academy Award. The Critics' Choice Awards, though, 3 times. PGA and BAFTAs have combined to pick the winner 1 time. The PGA and the Critics combined for 4 times. The BAFTAs and the Critics have never combined to pick the winner. None, an impressive 4 times. 4 times, none of these award shows picked the eventual Oscar winner. And when have all 3 of them picked the same that would go on to win the Oscar? 9 times. That's a lot of anomalies in this one. 4 times, none of those award bodies picked the eventual Oscar winner. Which means out of these 6 awards we've been talking about, this one might be the most unpredictable. Only because, percentage-wise, if you won any of these 3, does it really matter? Because there's still a pretty big chance it's going to go to somebody, it's going to go to a completely different movie. But just for fun, let's take a look at the 4 anomalies from the past. It happened in 2004, 2005, 2016, and 2019. In 2004, the PGA and the BAFTAs agreed that it should have been The Aviator, while the critics picked Sideways. The Oscar eventually went to Million Dollar Baby. A little bit of a weird pick there. In 2005, the PGA, the BAFTAs, and the critics all agreed it should have went to Brokeback Mountain, but we all know what happened that year. The Oscar eventually went to Crash. That horrible, horrible pick of a Best Picture winner. In 2016, the PGA, the BAFTAs, and the critics all agreed that it should have been La La Land, but the Oscars, in that very surprising moment, went to Moonlight. And then in 2019, the PGA and the BAFTAs agreed it should be 1917. The critics picked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the Oscar eventually went to Parasite. If you take a look at this graphic here, you can see something a little bit interesting. The PGA and the BAFTAs always agreed in these 4 years who was the best picture. The critics was agreed in agreement twice, but picked something different twice for the Oscars to go completely elsewhere. So the PGA and the BAFTAs, not a really good ratio when it comes to Best Picture. So right now, only 2 movies have picked up a Best Picture award at these 3 ceremonies. It was Anora and Conclave. Conclave we haven't talked about in any other category really yet, but we're going to talk about it a little bit here. Anora picked up the PGA and the Critics' Choice Award, while Conclave picked up the BAFTAs. Conclave only picked up the BAFTAs. If we go back to this list here of history, you can see that the BAFTAs alone has never predicted the winner. Ever. The BAFTA has predicted winners, but usually in combination with either both the PGA and the critics, or with the PGA. It's never picked with just the critics either. So if we go back and we take a look at how those awards broke down, Conclave, you think, well, you don't really have a chance. But overall, the BAFTAs have a decent success rate, usually combined with others, but it gives Conclave only a 41.67% chance of winning the award on the night. Anora, on the other hand, winning both the PGA and the Critics' Choice, has a 79.17% chance of picking up Best Picture as the last award of the 2025 Academy Awards. So again, if you go into your whiteboard, Anora should probably be on top, but don't count out Conclave. And with The Brutalist not picking it up at any of these 3 ceremonies, does that really mean that it's out of the running either? No, I don't think so. The Brutalist probably still has a shot of winning Best Picture, but it's a little bit slimmer when you look at who won those 3. I don't know. I've been watching the Oscars now for over 20 years, and usually there's at least some chatter of like, we know what's going to happen. We have a very good idea of what's going to happen. And sometimes we get surprised. This is the first year in a very long time that I just don't know, and I don't think a lot of other people do. Everything's unpredictable on this night. Everything's up in the air. The only 2 awards I think are really locked in are the Best Supporting Actor and Actress. Kieran Culkin's a lock. Zoe Saldana is a lock. Everything else, who knows? But hopefully, this dive into the precursors helped you figure out who may win the 6 big awards of the night. Let me know in the comments below your picks for each of these categories, and if you're going to be watching the Oscars when they air on Sunday night. Until I see you again, just remember to be good to yourself, kind to others, and keep watching movies.